Welcome to The Explainer. All right, today we're tackling a pretty provocative and, let's be honest, a kind of brutal worldview. It's all about how to navigate a world that feels like it's in total chaos. We're distilling the ideas from the writer Fahri Karakash, who basically argues that the old rule book for how to live your life, that's been torn up. So let's just dive right in.
So this quote right here, it's really the heart of the whole argument. It's this stark warning that all those strategies our parents and grandparents used to build a stable life, they just don't work anymore. According to this perspective, the very ground is shifted under our feet.
Okay, so let's unpack this core idea. The argument isn't just that things are changing. No, it's that the system we were all taught to trust and believe in has, for all intents and purposes, already collapsed.
And this really shows you the shift in thinking. You know, the old playbook was simple. It was linear. Trust the big institutions, get a good job, climb that corporate ladder step by step. The new playbook, the one the author says is now essential just to survive, is all about radical self-reliance, about building your own value and thinking in terms of exponential growth, not just slow, steady progress.
So you might be asking, why? What caused such a massive change? Well, according to the source material, the diagnosis really starts with a deep, profound collapse of trust. The whole argument is that the very pillars that used to hold society up have basically failed us.
And the author doesn't pull any punches here. The claim is that governments just aren't reliable anymore. The key example given is how they print money, which, leads to inflation, and that quietly steals the value of your savings. So the message is pretty blunt. You have to depend on yourself, not the state.
That same intense criticism is aimed squarely at the media. The author contends that you can't really look at major news outlets as impartial sources of information anymore. The view is that they've become biased propaganda machines and that we need to be extremely skeptical of pretty much everything we hear.
And look, this idea of collapse isn't just about one or two things. It's comprehensive. The language used is incredibly strong, calling banks vampires and claiming universities aren't giving people the skills they actually need. It paints this picture of a world where all the traditional systems are broken, leaving you, the individual, to figure it out on your own.
But it's not just about things breaking down. The other side of this coin, the second part of the diagnosis, points to these massive, unstoppable forces in technology and economics that are just hitting the accelerator on all of this change.
So the warning here is that AI isn't some far-off sci-fi concept. It's happening right now. And the argument is that it's going to make a lot of routine desk jobs obsolete and fast. You have to get ready for a future where your job description gets totally rewritten or maybe even erased by technology.
And this is where things get really tricky. You see this huge mismatch. Technology, like AI, it's developing at this crazy exponential speed. But us, people, societies, our ability to adapt is, it's slow, it's linear. And that growing gap between the two is a huge source of the chaos.
Then you've got the economy, which is being stretched into these wild extremes. The source points to this mind-boggling statistic that the world's 8 richest people have as much wealth as the entire bottom half of the planet's population. That's not just a wealth gap, it's a chasm, and it signals the end of a stable middle class.
So what's the answer to money that's, failing? The author points to assets that are outside of anyone's control. Specifically, there's a bold prediction here that Bitcoin will eventually hit $1 million per coin. The logic is that since you can't just print more of it, it acts as a safe haven against currencies that can be devalued on a whim.
Okay, so after all that, which is a pretty bleak picture, you have to ask, what's the solution? But look, this isn't all doom and gloom. The source material doesn't just point out problems, it actually offers a whole new set of rules, a playbook for how to survive and even thrive in this new world.
And here it is. It's a 4-step path to what's called self-sovereignty. First, you have to achieve financial independence. Second, you focus on skills that can't be easily automated, like creativity and big-picture strategy. Third, you stop thinking short-term and make a 10-year plan. And finally, you become a creator, someone who provides unique value, what's called a solopreneur.
And this right here, this is probably the biggest mental shift you have to make. You've got to stop thinking in straight lines. The forces that are shaping our world now, tech, markets, you name it, they don't just add up, they compound. They grow exponentially. And this is such a powerful way to understand that idea. Just think about it. If you get just 1% better at something every day, it doesn't seem like much, right? But it compounds. After 90 days, you're not 90% better, you're almost 2.5 times better. And after a whole year, you are nearly 38 times better. That's the power of exponential growth. And it applies to everything, your skills, your health, your wealth.
So what should you be working on? The playbook says to focus on the things that make us uniquely human. It's not about what you've memorized. It's about how curious you are. It's not just about learning. It's about being able to unlearn old ideas. It's about empathy, creativity, and, this is a big one, building your own small, tight-knit network of people you truly trust.
And some of the advice gets really practical and pretty unconventional. Like this idea of looking into e-residency from a country like Estonia. Why? It's about building parallel structures, creating options for yourself, so your entire future isn't tied to the fate of just one potentially fragile country.
Okay, so all of this, the self-reliance, the new skills, the exponential thinking, it all leads to one final big idea. What's the end game here? It's not just about being tough or surviving the storm. It's about becoming something else entirely.
And that something is anti-fragile. So what does that even mean? Well, think of it this way. Something that's fragile breaks under stress. Something that's resilient or robust just endures the stress. But something that's anti-fragile actually gets stronger from stress and chaos. It uses volatility as fuel. It doesn't just survive shocks, it profits from them. This quote really just sums it all up, doesn't it? It's a call for radical personal responsibility. The argument is, forget trying to fix this giant, broken global system. Instead, just turn off the noise, stop the endless scrolling, and focus all that energy on building your own world. A world that is resilient, prosperous, and anti-fragile.
And that's really the central challenge this whole perspective leaves you with. Whether you agree with the diagnosis or not, it makes you ask a really important question. In a world that's filled with chaos and uncertainty, what's your playbook going to be? What steps are you actually taking to build your own stability, your own future? Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.